have gone through domestic violence, or even in the midst of it now, and don't have resources.
From soul pieces to soul pieces. From soul pieces to soul pieces. From soul pieces to soul pieces.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, my name is LaTanya Timmons. I am the founder of From Soul Pieces to Soul Peace. It is an organization that is dedicating itself to building a community of strong women. Tonight's broadcast is a surprise for many of you, I know, but thank you for tuning in. As you come in, do me a favor, like the video, like the broadcast, and share it with your followers. Tonight is going to be the conclusion of last month's dedication to shining the light on domestic violence because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We had plans to uh, end October with a broadcast. However, as I stated on my social media platform, due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to do that. And so tonight, this is the purpose of our broadcast. The hashtag for this year's campaign with domestic violence is everyone knows someone. And as many people that know me, those that are in my circle, my intimate circle, even some family and friends, they are not aware of the fact that I myself was a victim of domestic violence. If you followed us last month and watched any of those videos, the very first broadcast, I was the one being interviewed so I can discuss a few or a little bit of information about my experiences with domestic violence. And so tonight we're going to close out the discussion on domestic violence with myself being interviewed again. So, if you followed us for any period of time, one of the individuals on the screen may look familiar. He is our host of When Men Speak, and he's going to conduct this interview tonight. So, put your fingers together and welcome Mr. Markeith Merritt.
Hello, I am your host for tonight. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Markeith, and I would like you guys to welcome our guest to her own platform, which is Miss Ingram. We will be interviewing her in reference to her experiences. So, for many of you that did see the first episode of her being interviewed, we saw that she could not be in control and not be the interviewer. So tonight we have it all set up to where she has no responsibility, and we can we can do a deep dive into
Ooh.
her domestic violence experiences. So off the bat, when you think of domestic violence, right,
Mhm.
and the experience that you had with domestic violence, what's the first incident or event that comes to mind?
The most prolific incident, I would presume, is what you're asking.
Yes.
That comes to mind. Well, there were actually two that will remain with me, I'm sure, forever. One, I did share, I believe, with my first interview. Um, I was pregnant at the time
Okay.
and was somewhat rendered unconscious.
Okay. Did you
Pregnant.
walk? I don't think you really walked us through the unconsciousness.
Hmm.
I don't think you really walked us through what caused you to what happened to cause a result of you to be unconscious. So can you kind of
Um,
like walk us, if you can remember, can you kind of like give us details and walk us through this first event that you was actually referring to?
Absolutely. So, and I will certainly share as best as I can recollect. Um, I don't know what this argument started about. I have no idea what. I don't know how it started. However, what I do know is that individuals who are abusers, they can start an argument over anything, and so the argument started however it started, and it quickly intensified. And it intensified as it normally does with the individual just becoming very physical. Again, I was pregnant at the time, and I was very pregnant. I was probably 6 or 7 months at the time. Um, and so for me, though in the past I had fought back, at this juncture, I was not trying to fight back because I was pregnant and I was concerned about, the health of my baby. And I do know at some point during this argument, which ended up being physical on his part, he shut off the AC in the house.
All
And
right,
of
so wait,
course,
hold on. Before he set off the AC, he was physical before then.
mhm,
And what do you mean physical?
he had
What do you
hands
mean physical?
he had put hands on me at some point. I can't remember everything um, as far as how that transpired. What sticks out to me the most about this particular incident is that I ended up on my back on the floor, and he had a knife. He was straddling me. He had a knife to my neck, and he said that he was going
Wow,
to kill
wow.
me. And it became difficult to breathe because it was hot, and so the more I moved or exerted energy, it was just depleting me of strength. I couldn't do a whole lot. And so I was just there, like, just laying there looking up at him, basically at his mercy. And for whatever reason, I did begin to perspire. I do remember that. But for whatever reason, he got up and just kind of let me go because initially he was preventing me from leaving. He locked the doors. The windows, of course, were locked. The AC was off. There was no home phone. I did not have a cell phone, so I couldn't do anything as far as notify help or call for help. But for whatever reason, he got up and let me go. And I took off out of the home and ran to my neighbors, um, and just started banging on their door, just banging on their door. And as the lady of the home, I'm presuming was the lady of the home, as she opened her door and began, and I was just saying to her, call the police. But it was almost like a dramatic movie scene. I began to slide down because she didn't open the screen door. She opened the front door, but not the screen door. She never invited me in, which was okay. I never held that against her. In fact, this is just coming back to my mind now. But I kind of slid down the door and passed out on her front porch. So when I remember anything else, I was being put into the back of an ambulance.
So you say he was physical with you now. He was putting his hand when you say put hands on you, you mean that you know what I'm saying? He was knock you out with the cannons or what? Like what do you mean? He was grabbing you, he pick you up, he body slam you, he was punching you in the face. I mean, what do you recall?
I do. Can I just insert this for a moment for anybody that may be watching now or watch a little bit later? I almost burst out laughing just then. I do realize this is not a comical situation. It's not. For me at this point, I can laugh at it now because um, I'm not where I was then. That's why I can respond the way that I do now. I don't want anybody that's watching this to misconstrue, my response about anything. Of course, it was not a laughing matter at the time. Um, at this particular incident, again, I don't remember him. It got physical because it started with me sitting on the sofa and I somehow ended on the floor on my back. But I don't remember him hitting me with a closed fist or open hand or anything at this time. I just don't remember. And um it wouldn't be we were the same size, same height, same weight. At that time I was like pre-pregnancy. I was probably 120 pounds. That is still not funny. We were the same size. And I said that just to say he never picked me up and body slammed me. He never did that.
Gotcha.
But he has struck me with a closed hand before a closed fist.
Okay. So what happens? The ambulance comes, what happens?
Um, I guess they evidently she called the police as well. Um, he had a habit of stripping me or attempting to strip me of all my resources whenever we were confrontational or he became confrontational.
What does
Um,
that look like? What does that look like?
he'd take all my money. I didn't work. He never wanted me to work, so I was not working. And the goal, I believe, he never said this, but the goal, I believe, in what I've learned about abusers, um, he wanted me to be completely reliable on him. I had money and I had a secret account. So he didn't, well, I didn't think he knew about the secret account, but he was the type that would always go in my purse. I would wake up to him in my purse. And um, you gentlemen are married, so you may know or may not know, I may be spilling tea in this aspect, that, there are different type of compartments to our purses or wallets at the time. And so whatever I did not want to easily be found, I would put it in, a secret compartment or whatever. But he would always find whatever I had. And of course, because of the nature of the relationship, he would know pin numbers and things like that. And so he would take all of my money. And I hated the fact that he drank. I hated it with a passion.
So that's what I was gonna ask you. So he was an alcoholic, not a druggie. I was gonna ask you, was he a druggie or
He never used
something?
drugs, but he did drink. He drank quite a bit. However, I would say that he was a functional alcoholic because he would go to work. He would go to
Right.
work. He would drink. He would drink a lot, and I hated it. I hated
So
to
you
see me.
think do you think that's what led up to him abusing you,
I,
because he was drunk and
I would
acting out of character?
it wasn't primary. I don't think that was the primary reason. It would be secondary or add to, um, you know, the alcohol would probably give him a little bit more boldness to do what he wanted to do. However, I think, as we discussed in several of the interviews last month, or several of the broadcasts last month, I think he had other underlying issues, and I was not the first person that he abused. I was not the first person. In fact, he abused every female that he had been with prior to me.
Did you
Um,
know that?
I did not know that initially. I did not.
So you end up in the hospital. What happens? He comes to see you. He cries and said, "Take me back." Being that this was what this was like, y'all had been in a relationship for a minute, so this had been happening quite a few times. But this the first time you made it to the hospital. It was so bad that you had to go to the hospital.
Honestly, we had been together for a while, but the abuse escalated. It initially, when I think about it now, or over time when I've thought about domestic violence and what happened in this relationship, it started out as him snatching me by my arm, and I didn't think much of it. I would not have. In fact, at that time, I did not identify it as domestic violence. And for a long time, I never identified it as that. So, as far as physically, it started with that. And then, but I was still living around my family at the time. Once I relocated here to my current city, which is where he's from, oh, all bets were off. He completely changed. He completely switched up on me. So it began to be very verbal. Um, and then it was a lot of emotional abuse. The physical didn't start right away. It escalated over time. It was a gradual escalation of abuse.
Do you feel like, being that he was projecting that on you, verbal abuse and all that, do you feel like your response was the same? So did you start to engage and become aggressive? You know what I'm saying, to defend yourself, as while he was, you know.
It was a natural response, to be honest. To if somebody pushes you, you push back. Somebody hits you, you hit back. It was a natural reaction initially. Um,
So
and then
even though he started it and you feel like you defended yourself, do you feel like you was possibly involved as an abuser as well?
I
Because y'all were
absolutely
going to blows, right?
no, I don't. I did not then, and I don't now. I never initiated anything
Right.
ever. Um, but I just didn't see the point in just sitting there allowing someone to treat you or to hit me just because. And it was obvious that his reasons were, ridiculous. It was over time I learned his pattern. Somewhere along in there, I learned about him physically abusing the person that he was with before, to the point that this individual had black eyes and other people in the family saw it. So then when he started doing what he was doing to me, I was like, oh, so this is what he does. Then I found out about his father treating his mother the same way.
Hmm.
Oh, so this is what it is. It's not just a one time thing. This is like consistent. I don't know if this was a power trip for him, or I really don't know the basis of why he did what he did, but he did it. It was a
So
lifestyle thing.
how did this affect you as far as going into other relationships? Because like, um he if someone you're in a relationship with now says, "I don't want you to work," does that trigger you, or that makes you? I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, being in that
Well,
experience.
oh my gosh, that's a great question. I huh, okay, let me see. Let me process the question that you just asked me. Yes, if um If I'm told, you know what, I don't want you to work, it does trigger. It's a trigger. It is a flag. And I'm like, no, I'm going. I'm going to work. So that's something that I have to deal with. I don't project that on. I wouldn't project that on someone else. Oh no, I gotta work because you don't know what you don't know the background to that phrase or whatever. I would not respond like that. I would internally. I'm like, listen, okay, breathe. They are not him. It's not the same
Right,
situation.
right. No, okay, right. But
Mhm.
right now, I'm saying that's what your response would be outwardly. Right now, I'm saying inwardly. Someone says that go now, like you said, let's go through the process. Why are you thinking this way? Like this trigger,
Well,
what?
listen. After you've experienced something like that, it just the effect just doesn't go away. It doesn't just dissipate and go
Right.
away. You have to progress through this thing. And it's not something that you do on your own. You watch movies. If you've ever watched Diary of a Mad Black Woman, there's some things
Right.
that I extrapolated from that to, because that movie was a trigger. That was a
Right.
trigger for me. And I just extrapolated little nuggets from that and was like, okay, okay. You can't just put up this wall against every individual you meet because of what one individual did. And I know I did for a long time.
I
I
need you to
did.
tell me your thoughts though. I need you to tell me your thoughts. If I'm coming and I'm like, hey, listen, the dude say, listen, I don't want you to work. What's going through your mind? What about your experience causes you? What does it cause you to think when someone comes to you like that? Man, oh no, this is the reason why I can't not depend on this individual.
You trying to control me?
Control you,
Are you trying to control me? Why don't you want me to work?
okay?
So I would be completely dependent on you. Um,
You got fear, okay?
yeah, yeah, it would be fair.
So how do you feel like have you matured and grown from that, or is it still there subconsciously and it doesn't come up until the question is asked? So you still go through that process in your head, but then your response is, well, like you just did. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear what the right response is. I want to hear what the struggle that you have internally because of the experience that you've had.
I just have to be honest. I don't believe that I have any struggles now as a result of that. I don't
Okay.
think so. I will say over the years I did. It made me very aggressive. It made me aggressive. Um
Aggressive how? Aggressive how?
I guess misappropriating responses and feelings. A no, um, or if there was a disagreement in a relationship after that, if there was a minor disagreement, no aggressiveness, just a disagreement, I probably became the aggressor. So what you saying is, so what you mean is, or if you saw behavior that somewhat,
Mm,
why is that
okay.
fun? If you
No,
if
I'm just listening.
if I saw behavior that was indicative to me, was indicative of the behavior that I saw in him, then of course, in the vernacular that we use now, I'm giving this person a side and let me see if they're gonna do this because that's what he did. Because he did what if he made a move like this, then that's what that meant. And
So you
so
still there? You still in that space when people? I'm
I
asking
think so. I
because
really
because when somebody tell you no, if like since that if a dude done told you no, right? What is your response? Like, is it that response like you just said? Like, I need you to be honest now.
I'm being very honest. I'm being very honest. If there's it, listen, there could be some residue.
You stumbling right now. You stumbling. Like for real, seriously. Like if a
It,
dude tell you no after that, you know what I'm saying? If a dude tell you no, like, is it hard for you to accept no?
Maybe it may it may be hard. The verbal part is much easier than someone. I would definitely have a problem with someone who is loud and authoritative and was very controlling. I would have a problem with
Wait, explain that loud. I mean, loud. What do you mean when you say loud?
it. Really, like their voice carries.
Verbally
Yeah,
projecting your voice loudly.
yeah, the
Okay.
physical. That's what I mean. Now, in this aspect, because this saying no to me is not that big of a deal, honestly. But if they were
It's
loud,
the tone. There's the tone. So if I'm saying no in the tone is a certain way.
it could be a trigger. Yes,
Well, I mean, if he said, yeah,
right.
um, it, so if the individual said no and it's the tone, and then if he says no and he's authoritative, right?
I'm gonna try to differentiate that because as a woman, I want someone who's authoritative. You know how to lead
Right,
in that
right.
aspect. However, if you're controlling, um, if you're trying to control me as an individual, everything about me, I have a problem with that. If I don't have a voice, if this individual, him being him, takes away from me being me, then I've got a problem with that. That's going to be a problem.
Okay. So you saying you know how to differentiate between the two? Because to be honest with you, I would think even because you have that trauma, sometimes it's hard to is the word appropriate. Sometimes it's hard to decipher what's what. I
Right.
would think because of your experience, if somebody told you no,
I should have never looked at my phone. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Comment. But I'm sorry. Continue with the interview, please.
so what I'm saying is, would you
Yes,
be
sir.
able to decipher the two? I'm thinking it would be hard to be able to decipher the two, based on because of your experience. If the person answers authoritatively, can you excuse me, ma'am? You being interviewed right now, so can you please not look at your phone anymore? Thank you.
I, I was trying to
So that
share it.
so
I'm going to share, but yes,
okay, go ahead, go ahead.
I'll wait till you finish this question because if I look down at the phone,
Did you get the question though?
I didn't. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
I said that I would assume that it would be hard for you to decipher the two when the individual is loud and they're authoritative and possibly trying to control the situation at that moment. I would think because of your experience, you would kind of sometimes it would bleed over and you wouldn't be able to recognize, you know, what the area or the direction that person trying to go in without assuming that they are like your past experience.
Honestly, that it seems to be in my thoughts. There's something that automatically happens, like your ability to reason somewhat automatically shuts down for me because that's not everybody's story. It automatically shuts down, and I go into protect mode. Let me protect myself because
Hmm.
this is possibly about to go here,
Right.
which isn't fair. Because if the person hasn't given you any indication, that they are aggressive, abusive, or anything like that, that's really unfair to them. That's really unfair. And honestly, I'm either going to respond one or two ways. I'm going to get quiet because I'm thinking, I'm planning my move, how I'm going to move in this, or I'm going to become very loud and boisterous. We're going word for
Okay.
word.
Okay. So do you think being that you still have this because certain things trigger you, Do you think are you open to a relationship?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
open to love again?
Oh, definitely.
Because you
Uh,
have after this actual individual you did, right? You were able to move forward after this individual that we're referring to.
yes, I was. However, yeah, that probably, for whatever reason, it seems like the direction was the same type of person, unfortunately, and so I'm older and wiser now.
So what about the last relationship prior to getting the one that we're referring to now? Um, after after you decide to leave, what about your last relationship? Um, what takeaways did you take from that into this next relationship that you said was basically like the same individual? For some reason, you was attracting these same type of people. So what was it? What did you take away from that to apply into this next relationship? Even though you was attracted to the same type of individual.
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I'm not really sure how to answer that, to be honest. I'm not really sure. I would think that um, oh God, I think not being in a hurry, for one, to establish a relationship, that helped. And I became a sleuth, for lack of a better word, to
Who?
do sleuth, to do a lot more investigating in people,
Okay.
ask questions. I'm asking them questions. I'm finding out friends, who your close friends are. And that didn't go over well with a lot of people because, they're like, why are you asking me questions? Why are you asking? And there's a reason. I have children. And plus, I don't want to be involved in that type of relationship anymore. I, of course, don't want to be a victim. And then I don't want to be put in a position where I have to defend myself to the point that you know, it's deadly. I don't want to do that.
Mm, okay. So how do we go forward with you know how do we go forward with that? Oh yeah, but before we go to that, so you want to share with your comment that you see?
No, because they should have posted. Well, some of them they're not going to post, and no. Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, I thought you said you wanted to share.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. I thought you meant sharing what was said. Yeah, let me share. I was just told to dumb it down. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me get to the broadcast and share. Listen, I will say this as I'm going here. You are causing me to um, really really think about this in a way that I never have because my celebration has been in the fact that it has been years since I've had to deal with this and never have dealt with it again, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we get out of situations and we are so determined not to get back into them again, um, in many ways we what is the word? We like stuff those things in way in the back of our memory. Um, although there is some residue, I
Hmm.
believe that we because we're out of the situation, I believe that we don't allow ourselves to fully heal and embrace every aspect of the experience.
I must say, I have a few reminders, actually, physical or visual reminders, um, that will be with me forever, that will remind me what I've been through. Although that particular incident that I just shared with you guys about passing out on my neighbor's porch, that was that was most significant because I was 7 months pregnant. And by the way, I think you asked and I never answered. He did not go to jail. I don't know what happened because I don't recall speaking with a police officer. I really don't. I heard my neighbors when I was in the back of the ambulance. I heard my neighbors share some things like they're always arguing, blah blah blah, which was true. And I don't know what he said to them, but he never went to jail. I remember hearing the doctors discuss too while I was in the hospital. I heard someone say, "Whoever did this to her is going to jail." That he didn't go to jail, and I don't
Mm.
know what he said. I was fearful to say anything else because I feared once we got back home that he was going to jump on me. So I never said anything. I didn't say anything while I was there. When I was discharged, he took me home.
Oh, so you that wasn't it. So
Hmm?
that wasn't it. That wasn't it. You didn't leave then.
I didn't leave then. No, I didn't leave. I
Okay.
was pregnant. I didn't leave until my daughter after she was born.
And that
However,
was 2 months later.
she was born 2 months later. But I had a plan, and that's what I was about to allude to. Um, I did find my voice because I was afraid to say certain things to him. And I think I shared this with you. I know I did in one of the interviews. I was a fighter, so I did fight back initially, but then I stopped. It seemed like me fighting back only made him more angry, and so he would hit harder, unfortunately, and I stopped fighting back. But I did find my voice, and I remember telling him, when I have this baby, I'm out of here. As soon as I have this baby, I'm out of here. And excuse me, I share this often. I went on a job interview when my baby was 2 weeks old. Mind you, I had a C-section, so I shouldn't have been working that soon. But I went on a job interview when she was 2 weeks old, and I started working shortly after that. Um, Somewhere along in this transition with me thinking, planning my move, because we discussed before how the abused can't, they shouldn't just leave. You've got to plan how to do this. And I had children. So um somewhere in between me having my daughter, the 2 weeks that I went on, when she was 2 weeks old, I went on an interview. He and I shared a beeper because he worked out of town a lot. We shared a beeper. I kept it. No, he would keep it when he was gone so that I could reach him. But when he came back, he would give it to me. And so he was home, he gave it to me, it went off, but he came out of nowhere and dived on the bed to get it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, I found out it was a female. And it was a female that he had told me about prior to us getting together. And anyway, come to find out, they had been doing what they do. I told her, because he was gone by this point. I told her, and I knew she was married. I told her, I'm going to tell your husband. And I did. I told her I was going to call. I knew she was going to leave eventually. I called her house when she was not there, and I told her husband. Ironically enough, the husband knew about my guy too. And so that just kind of speeded up my intention or
Right.
desire to get out of there, because that's what bred some of his behavior when he wanted to
Right.
leave, which, I was pregnant at the time. I wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't go anywhere. I didn't have a job. He would take the car. So I was stuck sitting at home. So I don't know why you come home arguing when you just coming
Right.
back from being gone. You would leave on
Right.
a Friday and I wouldn't see you to Sunday. And you
Right.
come back mad at me. So
Right. It was just that was his strategy. So
mhm.
now, so this next one, the second one that you think of, it happened after this. It happened in a totally different relationship. So
It
this
happened.
was the very next relationship.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
what happened with this?
Why are you so excited?
So let what happened with this? Cause I just wanna, cause it's
Um,
interesting. I'm go ahead.
with this one, Um, the worst. I had two cars at the time. This individual didn't have anything. I had an Acura Legend, and I just purchased a Honda Accord. And I gave them the Acura Legend.
Wait,
I love.
hold on, real quick. So the setup of this is you the provider in the relationship. This Negro ain't got jack do the help.
I
Oh, I'm
had more.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm on from soul piece to soul piece. I'm sorry. This is not women speak. I can't. I got it. So
You
this individual has nothing, right?
I had more.
Okay.
Uh huh.
All right. Go ahead.
I loved. I loved my Legend. Actually, that was my favorite car. It was something that I said I was going to get when I was in nursing school. But the Honda was new, and they wanted the Honda, and I was like, I'm not giving you my Honda. I gave you, my Legend. And for whatever reason, they were identical. These individuals were identical, honestly. And this person decided they were going to try and take some stuff of mine, and one including my car, not the Legend, but the Honda. And so they snatched my keys. And by this time, my mindset was nobody else is going to ever do thus and such. Nobody else is going to ever do what happened with this other person. And they ran out to my car, and I ran out behind them, jumped on them in the driver's seat, but the car was started at the time. They threw the car in reverse and attempted to throw. They did throw it in drive, but couldn't really go anywhere because I was hanging on to the steering wheel. And to be honest, I have a scar right up under one of my nostrils here from where I was hit. But I ended up falling out of the car, still hanging on to the steering wheel. I never let go. So I received um, road burn to my legs and my feet. The car ended up, and he couldn't turn it. He couldn't correct it because I was hanging on to it. And again, by this time, I'm hanging out of the car. I'm just holding on to the steering wheel. So the car ended up jumping the curb, landing or stopping in my neighbor's yard. It hit a pole there, and they jumped out and ran. And so the people at my home and my neighbor's house, they called the police. So that was probably the second worst.
So so prior to this, prior after after you did well, first of all, I'm gonna ask. After this incident happened, did you stay with this guy again, or did you leave him?
I I didn't leave.
Oh,
We
you
didn't.
you kicked him out.
Well, I didn't have to kick him out because he took off running. He knew, he knew what was up. It was a lot of people at my
You
house. It was a
oh
lot of people at my house when this happened, and
oh,
they didn't know what was happening until they heard the boom. So they didn't know what was transpiring outside because of, I
okay.
believe,
So he never returned. So he
yeah,
never returned after that,
he came back.
and y'all was still together after that.
Let me just say this: this person is now doing life in prison.
He what?
He's doing life in prison.
Oh man. So okay, prior to this big incident with you and his in this relationship, y'all was going back. Y'all was fighting. Y'all was throwing them hands with each other. So I'm trying to figure out like, soon as you get in a relationship, y'all throwing hands.
It was
You know what I'm saying?
almost
As soon as you get in a relationship, you already used to throwing hands, and ain't no
yeah,
Negro finna just throw hands on you like this no more. So
right,
it gonna take one little thing, and see this what I'm thinking. Even though he may have been abusive, with that time when he did something, you just popped him. You know what I'm saying? Said something or did something, you just went well off on him
right.
because you already got this build up. You know what I'm saying? So then you kind of become a product of you know what I'm saying, of domestic violence by sometimes even being an abuser and then it not even realize
I
because of
I
circumstances.
I will say I was very short tempered. So what you asked me before about how to respond or how I would respond, I did the exact thing in that relationship. I was very quick tempered. It was not going to happen. What you're not going to do is talk to me this way. What you're not going to do is treat me this way. And because I had everything, and I accepted you with nothing. What you're not going to do is take this, that, and the third from me. That's what you're not going to do. And so when the aggression was, or this person acted as though they were entitled, I did become aggressive. And there were a few times that I probably initiated the physical contact. I know one specifically. I did. I did.
Okay.
It was very
Yeah.
embarrassing too. I did.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. And I'm trying to think also like you came accustomed to it, but so you maybe after a while you start to thrive off of it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe after a while, there's a possibility you may have thrived off of that, like the
Well,
drama of it, or the you know what I'm saying,
when you say
the
thrive,
conflict of it. Say that again.
can you explain your idea behind thrive off of it?
When I say thrive off of something, I mean you look forward to it, and it feeds you to want to do it even more.
The aggressiveness?
Yeah,
No.
I'm just I'm just asking. I'm asking because I know some people are like that,
No. What
and
I'm
but that's just what they become.
you I would sometimes you do just take on um let me just say for me, I was always in a defense mode. I was always in a defense mode, not just and that was with any and everybody, but more so with individuals I was in a relationship with. With any sign of trying, you being aggressive or being verbally abusive, yeah, it was on site. It was on
So we
site.
got 3 minutes, and I we got 3 minutes, and I want to ask you a question. What are the things that these guys had in common that attracted you to them? Is that they was authoritative. They walked in the room with confidence. They all were both light skinned, dark skinned. Like, was it the same statue? Like, did they have the same type of conversation that like
Oh,
made you melt? You see what I'm saying? So I'm like,
time. We don't have
huh?
enough time. We don't have
Yes, we
enough time.
do. Come on.
We
That's a
don't.
yes or no. Come on, come on.
I know. I'm serious. The second one, I don't know because my only response is ugh. That's my only response. I don't know. They both were light skinned, and at the time, light skin was in. So yeah, they were light skinned. The
They
thing
probably
is,
had the finger waves in their head and everything. Then
no,
the
honestly, no.
ultra perm and the dukes,
No. So ignorant.
the pretty light skinned boys. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They both were light skinned. Um, both of them. Now that I think about it, both of them had very tumultuous relationships um, with their with their father. The first one, his parents were married, so he did come from a broken home, but he experienced his family being a unit at some point, and he blamed his mother for the demise of his family. Though his father did the very same things that he was doing, or he emulated his father for whatever reason. He loved his father. The second one did not have a relationship with his father, and there was a lot he did not know about himself. I don't know if I looked like a target, and sometimes I wonder that. Do Was there something about me that made him think that because I never shared my first experiences with him. I didn't share that with him. That's not, we talk about domestic violence a lot now, but at the time we weren't sharing it, as much then. I wasn't 10
Right,
years ago, I would have never done this, what we're doing now, because a lot of people didn't know.
right,
So, people may watch this, it's like, oh my God, I never knew. But so I didn't tell him is my point. And sometimes what I realize is that when people realize that a person has been abused, they tend to just do it too. but he didn't know because I never told him. Um, but I know he had his own issues. He had his own issues, but that does not excuse what he attempted to do. You know, over here, it just wasn't happening. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing that. And then I had
So
children.
so when someone is harming you in this regard, were you in love with these individuals?
The first one definitely, yes.
So
That's
when individuals do this, I guess my question, and it's a question, 'cause, like, I don't know, cause I know people talk about how they like the they say makeup sex is the best sex. See what I'm saying? So in situations like this where people you in abusive relationships,
uh-huh.
you see what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? I know people that can go toe to toe and just be dogging each other out. And then all of a sudden, like they loving all on each other. Then they tell me how good the sex was. Like it's a big thrill. It's like a big rush, like going through the whole process. So I guess my question is like, is it different? Is that what helps? Is that part of what keeps a woman there? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. So please, y'all out there, you know what I'm saying? I'm really genuinely asking the question.
Because
I
I'm
don't
like,
know.
nah. Um, the consensus is, well, let me preface this by saying you just asked me about the love for them. I did love the first one. So that would have been a reason to keep trying until you just don't have any. I didn't want to be sacrificed anymore. I felt like I was sacrificing everything about me. That's not something
Got it.
that
Got it.
I believed in. I never believed in a man hitting a woman. I never saw it with my mom and dad my mother and my stepfather when they were married. I never saw that. Um, so that was just not going to happen. However, I loved him, and I did think I wanted my family, and I was just hoping that it would stop. Everything of the drinking would stop. The messing around would stop. I just hoped it all would stop until I realized, you know what? Forget him. I've got to do something for me and my kids. The second individual, oh, and then as far as so you were really asking a question about makeup sex. Um,
Huh?
I said you were really asking a question about makeup sex,
Go ahead.
how much of a part that played in it. Um, there is some truth to there's some truth to I guess a different level of passion behind it. But after a while, for the person that's been abused, you want to see some changes. And that doesn't work anymore. So the gifts don't work, the promises don't work, and certainly that does not work. Because there can be times as soon as you're done with the makeup, then there's another argument ensuing about something that is minor and it becomes major. It's a cycle, and eventually you want to get off this merry-go-round.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
And for the second one, nah. Ugh, mm-mm.
This dude crazy. All right, so real quick, Chancey, can we go in the we at the 53-minute mark. Can we go into questions real quick? Do we have any questions from any listeners? We have any
I,
listeners out there?
I only see questions from Johnson. But okay.
Yeah, there are a few questions, but as she said, they were all from me.
Okay, what is it? What's the question?
I think you addressed some of them already. Um, one of the things was because of your trauma in this area, how open or transparent would you be with a potential partner? Would you wait or tell them up front?
Tell them about previous abuse.
Yes, yes.
Um, I don't know if I would initiate the conversation about that. However, if they ask, I would certainly divulge some information, not everything, and it would depend on where we are. Like, how long have I known you? Am I even interested in you to tell you? Because if I there's no interest, then I'm not giving you that kind of information. And for the reason that I just mentioned earlier with Marquise, sometimes individuals who know that you've been abused prior look at you as someone who is easy to abuse. You're easier than someone who's never been abused, or um, yeah. So I'm not embarrassed or ashamed about it. So that wouldn't be my reason not to. But I would have to look at some other factors as to being transparent.
Okay, understood. I'm going to skip some of them for the sake of time. But now, because of what you've experienced, now at this point in your life, have you identified things to quote unquote look for in men now that you may or may not be interested in dating?
I'm sorry. Ask me that one more time. Okay, I see the question. Have you identified things to look for in men now that you may not have been interested in? Um, this may not seem like the appropriate answer for you guys, but more so than looking outwardly at other people, I look more so at me. Over the years, I've had to examine why I chose who I chose, what I liked about them. Like I was just asked by Marquis, and there were a lot of strikes against me too at that time. The relationship that, or lack of relationship that I had with my father, the lack of relationship I had with my mother, me just how I felt about myself and what I looked at myself, how I looked at myself. And because I've addressed those issues, it's really not even about the individual. Of course, I do want to do my due diligence and do my research on them. Um, and so that's probably one of the main things that I'll do. I'm just not easily impressed. Honestly, I'm not easily impressed at all. You can't. It's I don't want you to work. That doesn't work because I love working. I love what I do. Um, it's not about things. I'm not impressed by that. So yeah, it would be completely different. What I'm looking for in a person. But yes, I have identified things to look for.
Okay, okay, understood. In the last session that you had on this topic, I think it was last week. I heard one either you or the young lady that was your interviewee. You guys talked about background checks, especially in now day and age with everything what's going on today. Do you still attest to that, and would you do that in your case if you found somebody you're interested in?
Mm-hmm. I would. Yes, sir. I'm gonna use every app known to man, every one that I have access to. I am gonna do my due diligence. I'm gonna ask questions. I'm gonna ask questions.
Yeah, yeah, certainly agree. On your second relationship after the first abuser, the second abuser, I use it that way. How long were you invested in that relationship before you started to see patterns uh or signs and symptoms, shall I say, that he was an abuser? How long were you invested before it started to surface?
It had been some years. It had been 2 to 3 years, I believe, um, that I had been invested before noticing um, that they were abusive. They had the tendency to be abusive. I also believe that some of the second individuals' um, anger and abuse towards me came from the fact that he knew the first one. They weren't friends, but he knew how much the first one meant to me. And at some point in that second relationship, the first one was making it known that he wanted us to get back together. That wasn't the case, though. I wasn't going to go back to that period. And obviously, I thought I had something better. And eventually, um, what was there came out. He couldn't hide it anymore. The second one, he just couldn't hide it anymore. But then I just did not, and I was honest with him. At this point, I was very honest. I did not, my feelings were not, um, I didn't feel for him the way he felt for me. And I think he was hurt by that. And as opposed to just wanting to leave, he was trying to make me do something. When I say make me, he went to churches and got pastors and brought these people to my house and did all of this kind of stuff to make me be in a relationship with him. When I made it be known, I didn't want it. I don't feel this way. I don't, and I would never say I don't love you in front of other people. But when it was just he and I talking, I would say that. And he just wasn't accepting of it.
Wait,
And he would
y'all
go
was
get,
married?
hmm?
So you was married to him?
Mm-mm.
So were when you say church, so he was involved in the church? Both of y'all was involved in the church?
He's a preacher.
He was a preacher. What? And then the first person you was married to, was you married to the first person?
Mhm.
And they was in that y'all was in church as well?
I
No,
was, he wasn't.
because I was gonna ask you about that as far as like the relationship, spiritual relationship and everything.
Listen,
And that just prompted my question.
something, and I know we're right at an hour now, but something that we discussed too in these other interviews was how abusers sometimes can get people to really believe them. In both of these cases, folk believe them and not me initially. Um, but the second one, because listen, could preach, he could preach circles around some of the best of them. And so the church rallied around him until he made a fatal mistake. And then I didn't have to say anything else because it was out in the open. It was
Right.
all out in the open. And then he got
That's
this
it.
sentence. Yeah.
That's it. Hey, Chancey, you have anything else before we get ready to close?
Yeah. I want to ask one more, and this comes from the educational side of me. Uh, so you've been through this,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you've spoken to, other women who have been through the same thing, and possibly men too. I just don't know too many. Do you think that folks are subconsciously drawn to these types of individuals that have, and when I say folks, I'm talking about previous recipients of domestic violence. Do you think they're drawn to these type of people subconsciously?
I want to say yes and no. I could actually either go either way. A person that has been abused, um, it's especially if it's been very extensive. You've been hospitalized. You've had broken bones, black eyes, and things like that. I've never had bones broken. I've never had a black eye. But if you have the ability to exit that relationship, I don't think anyone would make a conscious decision to be engaged or involved with someone who has the potential or the track record to do it again. I really don't. But then there's the part of the woman that is nurturing. If she happens to be in a relationship and finds out some information about someone afterwards, we tend to think, well, this time it's going to be different. They're not going to do it to me. They won't do that to me. And here's the problem with women sometimes, when a man moves on and the lady has issues with it, women should be able to discuss things. If you're over this man, there's nothing else going on with you guys. If a woman comes to you and go, look, sis, such as we're dating, and I understand that you and he dated before. I just have a couple of questions, if that's okay with you. I don't see the problem with that. I personally don't. If someone asked me a question about an ex, I would be honest with them, not giving them too much information, answering just what they ask me so that they can make an informed decision. I've had a woman to do that about the first one. It was his wife. He married someone else, and it was after the fact, years after the fact. But he denied everything to her, and someone else told her, "If you want to know the truth, ask his wife, his ex-wife." And I finally spoke to her, and I shared with her. I answered her questions rather, and she was completely shocked. She never knew he did prison. He did prison time for domestic violence and battery on Leo. She didn't even know this stuff, so it wasn't just me telling her. There was proof that what I was saying was true, and I think, you know, sometimes the best resource is going to be the person that they were in a relationship before. Of course, there's a way to approach that, and if it's safe, do it. I don't understand what the problem is with doing it, and women just being adult about it and just giving pertinent information, not bashing someone, because I've never bashed that man, either one of them, really. Never bashed them, just told the truth. Mr. Marquis, you've turned off your interest. Can't hear you.
No, ma'am. I'm sitting here thinking about everything you just said and visualizing it. Actually, Mr. Haywood, is that all you got for us?
Yeah, I just posted the domestic violence hotline in the chat for everyone to have that number on hand.
Thank
Don't want to leave that out for those who may be suffering in silence or may be experiencing this thing uh, present day. But the only other thing I wanted to say or address is now for you, Latanya. This happened years and years ago.
you. Yes,
Have you noticed an increase or more resources today than there were back then when you were going through this?
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, with the help of social media, people are becoming less ashamed or embarrassed. And with that, then people are more apt and prone to um, share experiences and the resources that help them. Of course, there are some national resources like the number you posted and what we're seeing on the screen now. Um, but because domestic violence has also increased, the instances of domestic violence has increased. In fact, it has become more violent. Domestic violence is now more violent. There are definitely more resources, more groups, self-help groups. Um, um, oh God, the word is eluding me that I'm trying to mention. However, yes, I do see more resources and more help, and people being more apt to share what they've been through. Sometimes I think one of the biggest issues is that folk feel like no one can identify with them. They're the only one. And because they're the only one, they don't want to talk about it. But once they realize some of the celebrities that they follow have been victims of domestic violence, or some people that run in their circles, the lady that looks put together, like she don't even take no mess from anybody, that she's been a victim of domestic violence, this will cause other women to begin to talk about it, and not just talk about it, but share experiences, how you made it out, and ask some of the same questions that you guys did. What are you doing now to make sure you don't fall into this trap again? They're making better decisions than before.
Good, good. I think that's the biggest thing from what I've seen, nowadays as opposed to yesteryear, is more people are talking.
Yeah,
More people are engaged. More people are not hesitant to reach out for help. That is, and that's, I think that's the one of the best things we can do, because silence alone is what keeps a lot of people in that for so long, so many years, because they won't speak out of fear and everything else. And then I've heard even people say that they have spoken out, and then people don't believe them because that other person, like what you said, they're the pastor, they're the preacher, they're the lawyer, they're the judge, they're the doctor. So there's no way that they're doing stuff like that. There's no way they're mistreating you or treating you that way. It's got to be something you're doing. It's got to be you. So that's good to hear.
It's really sad that, and I've seen, I can't think of specifics right now, but there's some cases that I've seen in the public or on social media where um, someone's their characteristic has been called into play against them because they were observed being aggressive in one situation or another. And now, if it's, if the narrative is that they're in an abusive situation, then they have to have been the instigator when that's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. And I think it would be wise to investigate both sides. If a woman says that she's been abused, fair enough, true enough, you have some women who will falsely accuse people. We've seen that even with the instances of rape. And I know this isn't the topic that we're talking about. The point is that some people will falsely accuse others. This is true. But if you're seeing some indicators that there may be some truth to what someone is saying, why would you turn a blind eye to someone who is saying, listen, I'm being abused? And I will tell you, that made me very angry with the church. That made me very angry. This was someone who wasn't even faithful in church. After a while, they weren't even faithful. Though they were a preacher, they weren't even faithful in church. And they did a lot of other things. But whenever this individual wanted to have their way with me, and I said, no, I'm not doing it. I don't care what you say or do. For them to go and get pastors, and the pastors are willing to come back to my house and chastise me about what I should be doing, this, that, or the third. Listen, it took everything in me not to cuss them from Genesis to Revelation. So that's where all this hardness too about me was showing. I wasn't listening. I was sitting there like this with my arms crossed. And I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it because I know what I was experiencing. I know what I was experiencing. They did not know. And nobody cared to ask. They never cared to ask. It was when something else happened that then everything, about this individual came out, and then they wanted to come to me, and offer, these few words that they had to say. But at this point, you look, it's already, I've been living with this. I've been going through this for a little while now. I don't want to hear nothing else you guys have to say. I don't want to have anything you have to say. It didn't turn me from God. He's who he is, but I looked at certain people, and at this time too, well, not necessarily that time period, because it wasn't that long ago, but these men stuck together. That's all I'll say about that. They stuck together. I had to be, because I was the social one, I was the vocal one. So if there was any issue, it had to have initiated with me, and that wasn't the case. That was not the case at all. You weren't there. None of them were there that night I was drugged. That I have road burn. None of them came to my house after I was released from the hospital. Someone else was there changing the bandages on my legs. And this person took off. Of course, they jumped out of the car and took off. They were arrested sometime later. But none of those pastors came to my house or anything after that. They only came when he went to get them to say that, I was doing that. He never told them what he was doing, never said anything about what he was doing. It was much after the fact. And what he did made the news. So once they saw all of this, and of course the investigators did their due diligence to establish their case. And so once all this was on the news, then these pastors attempted to reach out to me. And there was one particular pastor, and then I'll stop. There was one particular pastor that they went to, and they came to get me. This pastor called me and said, "I'm going to pick you up. We want to talk." And I was like, "I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore." But okay, because I don't want to disrespect, this pastor. And I was just sitting there listening to him say all that he was saying. And honest to truth, honest to goodness, y'all, I was sitting there trying to figure out how I could get to him before the pastor could intervene, because they kept making me look bad. They were trying to make me look bad without saying what they were saying. And I said, why don't you tell the truth? And the pastor just happened to say, you know what? Something is not right here. It's something you're not telling me. And when I finally said the thing, the pastor said, so what about that? Then they started backpedaling and stuttering and no, but see, she won't do this and she this, that, and the third. And that was probably the only pastor that took the time to actually listen to me. Those other pastors, they weren't even listening to me. It was everything that he said, whatever he said had to be true. So it's really difficult. No one was discerning. You're right, Lenore. No one but that last pastor. The last pastor, yeah, they were able to discern that something was amiss. And I said I said, the pastor asked me, they asked me something. I said, what I'm trying to do is to trying to keep from burying a knife in his back. And the pastor was like, oh my God, what is going on? What you're not telling me? I was like, you're going to tell him. Tell them everything since you want to tell them why I'm responding like this. You know why I'm responding
Wait,
like this.
that I don't. I okay. I don't understand that. That should have been the number one question before anything else was started up. How you gonna just solely believe this dude like everything he says is absolute? I mean, who? I mean, I don't know.
Well, this is
That's
what I mean
the
when I said we don't have a voice for victims. Really, don't have a voice for real. It takes a lot, unfortunately, for victims to be believed, and that's sad. That's a sad commentary. It really is a sad commentary.
chance. You got anything else, sir?
And
No, sir.
mhm.
I do not.
Well,
Thank you for
thank
your
you
time, Miss
so much.
Tanya.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just telling Latanya thank her for sharing her testimony with us.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and leave it to Mr. Markeith to yeah, I had the hard swallow just then. I don't know if you saw that, but any other time I probably would not have gone into so much detail because a lot of my family members don't even know about all of that.
Right. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this. If your family members know but don't know, a lot of the people, a lot of your viewers don't know.
No, they don't.
So these people need to, know that you experience some of the same things, some of it, of what they experience. You know what I mean? So I think that connects you to them
Yeah,
in
I
another
hope.
way. You know what I mean?
Hmm, I hope so.
Well, you have anything to say as we get ready to close out this segment?
Do I have anything to say? No, I don't have anything to say. I was reading uh, a comment by Miss Tamara. It's hard to say something when the person being abused goes after you for saying something. It makes you want to be like, well, it ain't my business.
Right.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. I appreciate you guys tuning in. But no, I don't have anything else to say. I think I'm done.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to this segment and seeing your host or founder of From Soul Piece to Soul Pieces actually be interviewed and answer questions, and you guys able to see another side or hear another side of her life and what she went through. So for those of you that can attest, or to those of you that have experienced the same thing, I'm quite sure that if you have any questions or anything, she may answer them for you and can
Absolutely.
direct you in the correct, in the right direction to get what you need. We have the number down at the bottom. You know, please contact that number if you need that. Contact that resource. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and close out in prayer. And she is smiling. So do you wanna share what you just saw again?
Oh, you know,
Yeah.
I
No.
saw something.
Yeah, cause
First of all, I love you too, Lenore. Oh, you precious to me. But yeah, I got a text that says not the finger waves. I guess when you mentioned women do they have finger waves? You do play too.
hey,
You play too much.
all right.
Not
That was
finger
it.
waves. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, it was more, huh? It was more. All
Oh,
right,
I got 14 messages here.
all right. We'll go through them. All right, let's pray. God, we just ask you right now, Lord, to just bless this segment to fall upon the ears of those that need to hear this. Bless them that are struggling with domestic violence and trying to find a way out. We ask you to strengthen them. We ask you right now, Lord, to begin to open up doors so they can even um, reach out and contact certain resources so that they can be assisted on leaving this situation. We ask you to prep them spiritually, God, emotionally, God, intellectually, Lord, as well as physically to do what they need to do to be able to get out of these situations, God. Allow them not to lose hope, God. Allow them
Oh,
not to even think about taking their lives because of the pressure that they may be under, God. We ask you to bless these people worldwide right now, God. Even them
Lord.
that is not able to hear this broadcast right now. Bless them, God. Touch them, God. Send people their way, God, so that they can be delivered from these situations. We just thank you and we praise you, God, for the women that made it through. And we ask
Yeah.
you to bless the families of the women that wasn't able to make it through, God. We'll forever give you all the praise, honor, and glory. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All
Amen.
right. Thank you guys. Have a
Absolutely.
good night.
You're not gonna give a plug about Tuesday?
Oh, you can. This is your platform, so I didn't want to do all that. So
Okay. Listen, When Men Speak will return to broadcasting beginning this Tuesday. This is going to be interesting. So if you are free, join us on this page at 7 p.m. for When Men Speak. It's the shift. Come join us, or come join them rather. It's going to be intriguing and interesting conversation. You'll be glad that you did. And that's it. Good night.